All right, we are live. Welcome everybody to Indivisible Text Ledge Live, October 14th, 2020. We're so excited to be here with you to talk about early voting action that's been happening, the turnout. And I'm really excited to welcome Jason Sugg, who is a part of the Indivisible Text Ledge organizing team. Jason is our commander-in-chief when it comes to Twitter. And so we thank Jason so much for helping us engage in that platform, as well as bringing a lot of that information back to help us stay informed. Jason, so great to be with you today to talk about the exciting voting that's been happening in Texas.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here, Alex. What a time to be alive.
Yeah. It is exciting in Texas. There is an energy you can definitely feel that is happening in Texas, which leads me to, have you already voted, Jason? Do you have your voting plan? You've already executed? You prepared?
Yeah, I voted yesterday. I'm in Travis County in Austin, and I went down to the Central Library, and there was a line around the building, and stood there and had done my research beforehand, had my people marked that I was going to vote for, but they were knocking it out. It only took me about 35 minutes, even with the line going all the way around the building there. So
wow,
yeah. And it felt so good to go ahead and do it. I mean, we've been waiting a long time for this.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like people were ready to get it done yesterday. Myself, our voting plan takes place next week. And so my wife and I, we have done our research. We have our, everybody identified for our ballots and everything that we're going to be voting for. But we're going to try to see if we can find a pocket where we may be able to get in and out, avoiding as many crowds as possible. Looking at the results yesterday, though, that may not be possible, and that definitely will not be a bad thing, because that means so many people are voting and people are excited to get out and vote. And so let's kind of dive into that. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to share my screen here. Let's see. All right. First, we're gonna take quite a drive through all of the activity happening online, and so we're really excited to navigate through all these various spaces with you. But first, we want to highlight the Indivisible Text Ledge website, because number one on our homepage is asking the question, "What's your voting plan?" As Jason shared, he had a voting plan. It's been executed. Was able to check off that on his to-do list. And hopefully my family's voting plan for next week will go without a hitch, and we'll be able to check that off as well. But the big question is, what is your voting plan? And so there are some key questions that we want to make sure people are considering when it comes to how they're voting, where they're voting, if they're going in person, if they're doing early voting, if they're waiting till election day, or if they're going to use their mail-in ballot. And so these questions are here to help guide you so that you can be as prepared as possible for voting. So definitely visit indivisible-textledge.org, and that'll help get you prepared, as well as some other things that we're going to walk through that may assist you as well. So with Jason, you getting to occupy Twitter space, which I'm sure is sometimes very enjoyable, sometimes very frustrating. Let's dive into some of these tweets that you captured for us around what was happening yesterday.
Yeah, well, it was definitely one of the more exciting days to be on Twitter watching things unfold, because, I mean, as you're seeing from this tweet, I mean, we just had record-setting turnout all across Texas. I mean, this wasn't like the blue pocket of Austin or the blue pocket of Houston or anything. It was statewide, pretty much. We were having almost every major city had a record turnout yesterday, which is huge. I mean, and I know when I was in line, you could feel the excitement there. People are ready.
Yeah, so this is definitely the first thing, like you're saying, all the major counties with the largest populations. Bear County was super close, 909 votes short. And so they're essentially operating at record pace. You know, they're very close. This is the most voting that's been happening in a lot of these places for the first day. So that is definitely exciting news. Let's take a look at this tweet from Bob Moore.
Yep. And one edge of the state to here, I mean, look, we're talking 44% higher early voting first day turnout than 2018. I mean, that's 2 years ago, and 74% above 2016 in El Paso. So they are fired up out there and ready to see some change. And that keeps going.
And definitely Beto has been a huge part of this. His candidacy for US Senate was a huge galvanizing effort. We definitely know a lot of work after 2016 in Texas. People started organizing. We got connected post 2016, right?
Right.
And so there was a lot of groundwork being done. Beto has been a key figure in Texas, though. After his U.S. Senate candidacy, he did his presidential run. That ended up not taking him all the way to be the candidate, but he continued to engage Texas. And after that, his organization has really been one of the huge leaders where they had almost 3 million. The goal was 1 million on Monday to call Texas voters. 2.9 million calls were made, which is just phenomenal when you think about how many people that ends up touching. Because we're going to look at a little later that in the entire state of Texas, there's 16.9 million eligible voters. And so when you think about in one day, 2.9 were called by a multitude of volunteers, it's just, wow, is all I can think of.
One day. Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Kudos to Beto for, I mean, he has really hung in there and has a real dedication to making Texas better in this way, getting people to the polls to do this.
Absolutely. Nick Garcia, see, what did he share here?
Yeah, the similar thing in Dallas County, right? I don't know what the previous record was, but they were breaking a record there to almost 60,000 people voting in Dallas County the first day. And there's a lot of voters in Dallas County, so.
Yeah, and this comment here, the number can still go up through the night as more data comes in. It'll be interesting to see, how many people are voting on these early days, and as they're getting everything counted, if there's any of those modifications because there's so many people voting, maybe they didn't get that data out, in time, or there's more data that they're going to be adding. This will just be it'll be quite a ride to witness this, to see what kind of voting Texas ends up doing throughout this election.
Absolutely. Especially as some of the kinks get worked out. I know yesterday there wasn't a huge number of snafus, but there were definitely places where there were problems with voting machines, or things weren't quite set up right the first day. Or I think one polling place, the poll worker came in with coronavirus and they couldn't open until late. So there's those sorts of things going on too. Once we get those kinks worked out, it's going to be even smoother here.
Take a look at Patrick, which Patrick's a favorite when you're looking at Texas reporting. If you're not following Patrick, definitely encourage you to do that, because he always has a lot of great information to share.
Absolutely. This one really blew my mind. I mean, Harris County, which is Houston, they almost doubled their first day turnout from 2016, which is just incredible. I mean, and Harris County, of course, is probably the biggest county in all of Texas, population-wise at least. This is huge.
Yeah, it's phenomenal to essentially double, almost double the number of of people that voted early on the first day. I mean, I don't know if any predictions had anything like that in terms of.
Yeah. Yeah, it was hard to imagine, right? I heard a number that there were more early voters in Harris County yesterday than there were early voters in the entire state of Georgia yesterday, and Georgia set a record for their early day voting too. So, and I think we also got to give some credit here in Harris County to the Harris County judge, who was a newly elected in I believe 2018. And has done a lot of work to make it accessible. So we see here that, like, when voting is accessible to people, they show up to the polls. And when it's not, as it commonly is not in Texas, then it becomes a lot harder to get people there.
Yep. And we still see efforts trying to restrict the voting.
Absolutely.
Last week, we talked to Texas LULAC State Director Rudy Rosales around the lawsuit because the governor limited one drop-off ballot location per county. They actually won that lawsuit, but then the next day, an appeal was filed by Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, indicted Attorney General Ken Paxton. Recently,
long time indicted.
Yeah, and recently also made the news because of several staff members resigning because of things that they feel like are unethical that are happening. Right. But that appeal process ended up holding, and we're back to just one ballot per county in terms of dropping off mail-in ballots in person. And so there's also, I think, a news article from Texas Tribune around a lawsuit of drive-through voting that has been made available for people to be able to do that. And so there's still efforts trying to restrict the voting. And so every effort to try to make voting more accessible allows numbers like this to happen. And this is why we need it in voter suppression in Texas. It's a very bad habit. I guess if that's the best way of saying it, we have in Texas. And if we could eliminate that, more Texans would be able to vote in a much easier and accessible way.
That's right. We'd have a much more representative government than we have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's see. Katie highlights Travis County.
Travis County, again, set a new record for early votes. I think this one counts also the mailed-in ballots, but close to 60,000 people in Travis County have already voted today, as of yesterday. Who knows where we're at as of today? But and I think it continues here. I've seen some pictures today from various Travis County polling places where there were lines as well. So hopefully this is going to keep kicking along.
Now, there was some interesting stats around Travis County that, once again, are in the WOW area of election participation. I think there was an article with 97% of eligible voters in Travis County are registered to vote. And I think you said you had saw a forecast of how many people they're anticipating to actually cast a ballot.
Yeah, they were talking about 75% of eligible voters in Travis County voting, which is, I mean, really off the charts. I mean, normally on a really good year in Texas, we get like somewhere between 50 and 60% of people casting ballots. So 75% would be really hugely impactful. Also, Travis County is hugely gerrymandered. It has, I mean, it's a largely blue area that's been carved up into 6 different congressional districts, mostly represented by very conservative Republicans who, and at least 3 of those are on the ropes in this election because of these surges in Travis County. So this could have impact at the state ledge level and at the national ledge level and at the statewide level. So it's exciting to see.
Absolutely. And our last tweet, we definitely are going to dive into some more, but our last tweet is something that was shared that actually Reform Austin had originally tweeted about.
Mm-hmm.
This was exciting. Feel free to dive into this.
Sure. This really is like all these early voting numbers. This is for Indivisible Texas Lege what it comes down to, right? Like we have this question of what is the state legislature going to look like in 2020, and will the Democrats have a seat at the table, especially for around redistricting and other huge issues that are coming up. And you see polls like this where they're saying that every Dem incumbent is ahead in their district, and there are 11 GOP held seats that Democrats are leading in. And if they can take those 11 seats, they only need 9 to flip the House. And suddenly it's a whole different power dynamic in Texas. And we have a lot more leverage to, the last few legislative sessions have really been kind of nightmare things of focus on these really, like the bathroom bill and all these things that just don't matter to our state. We have so many bigger problems to be dealing with rather than these kind of culture war divisive things. So seeing these kind of numbers or these kind of polling numbers with the numbers for the turnout, I'm super encouraged by this. How about you?
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw the gains that were made. The Texas House wasn't quite flipped in 2018, but there were gains that were made. And lo and behold, we got some actual productive legislation that was passed. It wasn't everything that needed to be passed. I think you can look at HB3 around public education spending and the positive steps that were made. Many education advocates would say, it definitely is not enough, but we have struggled to even get positive steps happening. So before that, the conversation was around vouchers. And so many education advocates are opposed to vouchers of any form in Texas because we need public education dollars staying in public education. And so you saw that conversation change. It wasn't even about vouchers anymore. It was around the state increasing, their portion of contribution. And so to your point, if 9 seats are needed to flip the Texas House, but right now 11 seats are looking to be making, a potential impact towards a change, that will hopefully help us change a lot of the conversations around things like Medicaid expansion in the state of Texas. Because in the middle of a pandemic, we need some healthcare solutions.
Yeah.
And so this is absolutely exciting information to see around what's happening just from the first day of in-person early voting.
And you have to think that this carries over to the state Senate as well, that there's some, I don't think it'll flip, but that these numbers have to have some impact in shifting the power dynamic over there too.
Absolutely. So all of this is exciting news around the turnout for Texas. This stat in particular, though, we want to make sure that we're emphasizing why we need to help our family and our friends and our community understand down ballot voting is essential in this election. We know that it's a presidential election, and that tends to be the topic on everyone's mind, the vote that they want to make. But in Texas, we have a unique opportunity to really change our state legislature in a way that will truly serve the people in Texas.
Yeah.
So this is the opportunity to do that, to make sure we're sharing that information around down ballot voting, and that people are informed around the candidates, which a lot of great work has been done in that space, but continue to encourage everyone to fill out their entire ballot so that all of this participation can be captured in each
Absolutely.
that we live in.
Yeah. And some of the Texas state government works in these strange ways, right? So there are some really important down ballot positions that we don't hear a lot about, like railroad commissioner, who actually doesn't have much to do with railroads, but it regulates oil and gas in Texas, right? And especially in a state that is in a fracking bust right now, that's a pretty important position. And then of course all the Ledge candidates as well. So
absolutely. So let's take a look at numbers in Texas. And so we want to walk everyone through the Texas Secretary of State website, because you can see the results. Definitely, there's a wonderful reporting that is happening. But if you want to see what's happening in terms of early voting turnout, you can click here on early voting turnout. And let's see, we're going to choose the November 3rd general election. And then we're going to go early voting turnout by date, and we're going to get the most recent data, which is October 13th. And so what they do is by county, they provide you several key data points. The number of registered voters, the number of in-person on 1013. That was the first day, so the cumulative total is the same as 1013 because that was day number 1. The percentage of those in-person voters compared to the registered voters total. And then they're also tracking the by mail voters and giving you a cumulative total of in-person and mail-in voters. So you can look at the detailed reports by county, and right away you'll see, when those reports are highlighting record numbers in Harris County, in Dallas County, Tarrant County, Bexar County, almost hitting the record, Travis County. These are the largest counties of registered voters in Texas. And so that is all positive signs around Texans engaging in the election and participating by voting, which is exciting news to see. But we're going to scroll down through all of these counties, and you can definitely dive into these counties. If you're not in one of those major counties and want to see how your county is doing, you can see this information. But at the very bottom, there's a total. So for this election, we have 16.9 million Texans registered to vote. And on day 1, 541,000 voted on in-person early voting, which is 3.2%. And so far, 365,000 have voted by mail. Almost 1 million Texans have voted up to this point after October 13th, which is an exciting sign to see. But really, Jason, it kind of goes into that conversation. This October 13th was not the election day.
That's right.
November 3rd is the election day. And
Yep.
So while as exciting as these numbers are, there's a lot of people who are wondering, are people just voting earlier? Are we still going to get the same amount of voters at the end of this election? And people are just electing to vote in a much earlier state because of the pandemic. More people are voting by mail because of the pandemic. But really, we're not going to get a huge turnout change. And I know for you and I, a part of Indivisible Text Lege and the goals that we have, we definitely want to see an increase in voter turnout. And
absolutely.
Today and every day through election day, we are still encouraging everybody to participate in getting out the vote efforts.
Absolutely.
We cannot stop.
Yep. Make your plan, reach out to your friends and family, make sure they have a plan. We all got to keep showing up. I mean, this is wonderful to have this first day, and there's all kinds of encouraging signs out there, but man, we got to keep this momentum going if we want to hold on to this.
Absolutely. And this 16.9 total, you had an interesting number around that change.
Right.
Election, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's almost 3 million voters, 3 million more registered voters than there were in 2016. So, which is, that's crazy, right? Out of 16.9 million total, 3 million is what, almost 20% increase in registered voters in the last 4 years. And so it's, hopefully a lot of those new voters are showing up to the polls. I know when I was voting yesterday, there was a kid, a couple of people in front of me. I say a kid because he looked like he had to have been in high school. It must have been his first time out there voting. He couldn't have been more than 18, and I was so excited to see him. I almost wanted to go up and give him a hug, but we're like in the pandemic. So
yeah.
Hey, creepy guy, stay away from me.
Which we haven't talked about this beard. Is this the
I know.
Beard, right?
This is my COVID beard.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah.
I definitely need a trim just from a few weeks ago. I gave up my COVID beard after a couple of months. So it's great to see you're still hanging in there.
Yeah. I'm gonna hold on to it for a while here.
Well, Texas Tribune is a great resource for all Texans. And we just want to highlight, they also had an article around the turnout yesterday. Uh, Jason had mentioned there was a couple of problems that were being shared around. They're reporting on that as well. This article is in our post as well if you want to check it out. Some great information and reporting by Texas Tribune. And then we also want to remind everybody that they have a voter's guide on their website. And so if you want to get information that, around making your plan to vote, there's information that you can check out on their website that provides a lot of different things to consider, as well as what we provide on the Indivisible Text Ledge website. And so of all these resources that are available, we really want to encourage everyone to take advantage of these resources so they are prepared as much as possible to know about the circumstances of voting, as well as the people that are on the ballot and the research that you can do to make your choice in voting.
One thing we should mention about Texas Tribune too is they have a partnership with ProPublica this year. On Twitter, it's Election Land. And if you run into problems voting, the machine doesn't work, there's some weirdness that you're running into. If you look at Election Land, they have contact numbers, and you can get in touch with them and let them know, because they want to be on top of these stories if there's any kind of funny stuff going on.
Awesome. So there's that information as well that you can dive into. There's also mytexasvotes.com as another resource if you want to get information around voting, or if you have problems, you can call 844-TX-VOTES. And so, multiple opportunities to get connected with the resources to address different issues, as well as My Texas Votes has information around voting so that you can have everything that you need. And so with all of that we shared, we just want to remind everybody that planning your vote is so important. Voting down ballot is so important. Engaging friends and family. If you want to be a part of the volunteer efforts, you can always check out our calendar, which actually, let me go back to that.
Oh yeah, let's show them that.
If you go to our website and go to home and calendar, we've accumulated a lot of opportunities to be able to get out the vote, to support various candidates, and to be able to help inform people of what is on the ballot this year and why we need them to participate. And for what we're seeing right now, those messages are working.
Yeah,
Texans
absolutely.
are aware, and they are excited to get out there to vote.
Yeah, but there's always more to do. So get out there. Especially these down ballot candidates, you get so much bang for your buck by helping them out, right? It propagates upward, and they need the help. And we could do so much good at the text ledge level if these candidates can win.
Awesome. Well, Jason, I'm excited over the conversation that we've had. I'm excited over all the reporting that's been happening, and it'll be interesting to kind of go through the next couple of weeks, looking at the data, looking at the reporting to see how things are changing. So I definitely look forward to revisiting this with you as we get to Election Day. And please go out there and vote. Let's make this happen.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. Thanks, Jason.
All right. Bye, y'all.